My name is Sarah, and I'm one of the dietitians in the Adult Inherited Metabolic Disease service at Guy's and St Thomas's Hospital in London. I'm going to be giving a bite-sized teaching of label reading in Adult Refsum Disease. Label reading in itself is a very complicated tool to navigate and understand, and can sometimes be very confusing in the messages it's trying to give and the information that it provides. But I hope by the end of today, I have given you some tools and some tips to go away with when navigating label reading in supermarkets and the foods in your home. I'm going to briefly just start with navigating what is on a food label, and then talk more specifically about what to look out for if you have adult Refsum disease. So food labels all contain the name of the food, and I've given an example here on the side that talks through these, that includes these points. So chicken and vegetable broth, for example, is the name of the food, the weight of the food, the total weight of that food product, the ingredients, which are always listed in order of quantity used in the product. So the first ingredient, which in this case is water, that'll be the ingredient that makes up most of the food product. And black pepper, which is the last ingredient on this list, will be in the smallest quantity. And then it contains a nutrition information panel, which you can see here on the bottom of the label, which has all the figures and numbers about what the food contains in terms of different key macronutrients. So nutrition food label, it is mandatory for manufacturers to report energy, fat, carbohydrates, sugar, protein, and salt content. So these will always be found on a food product. Unfortunately, they don't break down foods any further than this. So we would never see phytanic acid on a product under fats, for example. So when thinking about it from a Refsum's perspective, we aren't able to get the phytanic acid level in a quantity, so we need to look more at the ingredients to guide us. A nutrition label will always have the values of macronutrients, energy, fat, carbohydrates, protein, salt, in the amount per 100 grams. So that's the amount of how much nutrients will be in 100 grams of that product. And they also sometimes, but not always, provide the nutrient per serve or per portion. If they provide the amount of nutrients or nutrition per serve, they should also specify on the label how many portions that food contains. So this example here on the right has per portion is half a pot, and they've said that this product contains 2 portions. In terms of the nutrients per 100 grams, this is really helpful when you're trying to make comparisons between two foods. So you, for example, have picked up 2 different breakfast cereals, and you want to know which one of these contains more sugar or less sugar. By comparing the per 100 grams of a like-for-like product, it's easy to see which might be the better choice. I put an example up here on the slide with in relation to biscuits. So per 100 grams, if you ate the same amount of a product, product A and product B, product A has 7.7 grams of fat, if that was something you were interested in looking at, and 22.9 grams of fat in the other product. So it makes it nice to be able to compare like-for-like products. Nutrients per serve and per portion. So as I mentioned, this provides the amount of nutrient per serve or per portion of the product that the label is on. It's not always specified. Some manufacturers don't include it. But in this example, it could be quite helpful because you might not eat 100 grams of biscuits. That might mean it's a couple of biscuits and a bit. You're more likely to eat them as individual biscuits. So each biscuit, then you'd be able to tell how much fat, how much carbohydrate or sugars, protein and salt were in each biscuit. And these are points that are important. While we don't have the phytanic acid on this label, and we'll talk about that in the next few slides, you might be looking at sugar if you're interested in that. You might be looking at calories if you're interested in that. So that's where you could get the guidance from. This example in this nutrient label per biscuit, that's quite a nice portion. So if it was per slice of bread, per biscuit, but sometimes, as in the first nutrition label I showed, it might be per half a serve. And that would assume that you would have the full food product would be divided into 2 portions. But if you ate the whole product, then that nutrition information is only relevant if you consume half the product. So you would need to then multiply it up to work out how much you would have for the whole product. So it can be useful, but it does also require considering how much of the actual package of food you are eating. So now getting more specifically on to adult Refsum disease and trying to work out, is this product safe for me? As I mentioned at the start, it can be quite a process navigating nutrition labels, and that's for anyone. There are a lot of words, they're in small writing, they're sometimes stuck on the front, sometimes the back. They can be really hard to navigate. And unfortunately, as mentioned, the phytanic acid won't be listed there, or the free phytols or the phytol esters. So really, we've got the ingredients list to guide us on, is this product safe? So the question would be, are these ingredients low in phytanic acid, free phytols, and phytol fatty esters? So which ingredients should you watch out for? What I would recommend is referring to your diet guide, either from the Global Dare Foundation website or provided from your dietitian, to get a general idea of which foods are high in phytanic acid, phytol esters, or free phytols. And these are foods that you definitely want to make sure you are avoiding on the ingredients list. And for example, as some foods that are commonly known to be high in phytanic acids, such as beef, cheese, and salmon, you would of course be avoiding any products that contain these foods. So if these words were coming up in the ingredients, you would be avoiding them. But there's a whole list of other foods and other ways foods can be written that makes it really complicated. I've tried to include a list of some ingredients that I see come up when I'm reviewing some food labels and working alongside people with adult refsums and also other health professionals and seeing, is this food or is this supplement okay? So some of them might seem quite obvious, but I thought I'd list them there because they're not always foods that are also listed on the diet guides. But they are derivatives or products of foods that are listed there. So animal fats, we talk about beef, lamb, those types of foods that are very high in phytanic acid. And the fat is particularly would contain all the phytanic acid. So looking out for words like lard or beef suet or dripping, for example, are examples of foods that you would want to avoid if they came up on a food label. Fish oils or cod liver oil. Again, oily fish are very high in phytanic acid, and that phytanic acid will be in the oil. Some foods contain added omega-3 or DHA, and this omega-3 could either be in the form of fish oil, DHA or omega-3, or algae oil, which are also very high in phytanic acid. So these need to be avoided. Milk or milk products. So milk is considered an allergen, and so will always be listed clearly on a food label, generally highlighted or underlined or bolded. So anything that contains these does need a closer look. Milk solids or milk powder. So they are the milk without the water, with the water removed, so the dry version of the milk. And depending if that is a full fat milk, semi-skimmed, or skim milk, will depend on whether it's safe to have. So anything that's full fat or semi-skimmed will need to be avoided. Cream, buttermilk, peanut oil, lamb and beef stock. These are all foods that are important to keep an eye out, and if they were contained in ingredients list, will need to be avoided. The next slide, I've just highlighted that sometimes we do talk about looking at products in the supermarket for things that might say dairy-free, or in the next slide, I'll talk about vegan. And these are just another range of options that are available. And if you were to pick up a dairy-free product, some foods will automatically not be listed. You don't need to worry about them. They can't be in the ingredients list if it was truly dairy-free. So I've grayed those out in the slide. So really a dairy-free product takes away the concern of it containing any milk or milk products, but it would still be important to just confirm that it doesn't have any animal fats, any fish oils, added omega-3, DHA, algae oil, or the peanut oils, or the beef and lamb stock. If you were to pick up a plant-based or vegan product, Again, this would eliminate some of the chance of these foods, these ingredients being in the product. But even with a vegan or plant-based product, it is still important to double check it doesn't contain algae oil or peanut oil or any added omega-3 or DHA, which would most likely be coming from algae oil, as those will still be high sources of phytanic acid. So which ingredients are safe? So I've listed here, and I won't go through them all. You can see them on the screen, and actually I'll finish this presentation with them on the screen as well, so you've got them there for your reference. These are ingredients that do come up and come up into question quite often for people with adult refsums. Are these safe to have in a product? So if any of these are listed there, they are based on the testing we've had and the knowledge that we've accumulated over time, will be safe to include. So skimmed milk is now considered low enough in phytanic acid to include, and therefore any ingredients that have skimmed milk, any products that have ingredients of skim milk or skim milk powder will be safe to have. Milk protein, that comes up quite often alongside whey protein, and this is quite a confusing one, but that is really just the milk, just the protein portion of the milk. So that's the fat removed and the water removed. So that is safe to have in adult refsums. Soya and chicken and vegetable stock are also safe to include. I've mentioned there also, and I mentioned it in the previous slides, around milk solids. So if they are clearly identified as skimmed milk, coming from skim milk, then they are safe to have. But if it's unclear, or it says full fat milk or semi-skim milk, then that will need to be avoided. So I've gone back to the first product that we had on the first few slides to work through this. So if someone with adult refsums was looking at the chicken and vegetable broth, I've included the key, or all the ingredients that are listed here in order. So water, carrots, onion, chicken, potatoes, peas, and cabbage. They are all products that are low in phytanic acid, free phytols, and phytyl esters, and therefore are safe to have. As are the products listed to the right: the celery, chicken stock, potato starch, pearl barley, rapeseed oil, garlic puree, salt, and pepper. So all of those would be fine to consume, and therefore that product would be okay. I've just highlighted one product here, spinach. Now it's only 2%, so it's a very small amount of the overall product. And when Eleanor and I are presenting the updated diet guidelines for 2022, we will talk a little bit about some products that fit into a new category called the amber section, and that there are foods that may be consumed, but if someone was struggling with high phytanic acid levels, may also need to be limited or had with caution. And so that's one product I've just highlighted there that may need further discussion. The next two slides, I've just given some examples of food labels for two types of products. So here we have a spread. The first one at the top is very clearly contains milk. They've highlighted it in bold as it is an allergen, and so that product would not be safe to have for adult refsums. The product at the bottom, looking through the ingredients list, and sometimes these lists can be quite lengthy, it contains plant-based oils and ones that we know are safe, so they don't have peanut oil in it, water, salt, some emulsifier, some fava bean, proteins, natural flavorings, vitamin A and D. So all of those would get the tick and would be safe to have, and that would be a spread that could be used daily. I've also included some jar sauces, and again, just highlighting where some ingredients are to be cautioned. So the top product has fresh cream, again from milk. It has butter fat, and it has cheese from milk. So those are all products that are very high, that would be high in phytanic acid, and so this product would need to be avoided. I have included, highlighted in green, two ingredients lists that do come up, but actually are fine. Milk proteins would be okay. They again are just the protein portion of the milk, so don't contain the fat, similar to whey protein. And lactose from milk is just the sugar part of the milk. So those two products are okay, but because if there's any products that are red, then that product needs to be avoided. So because it contains the milk, the cream, the cheese, and the butter fat, that one would need to be avoided. The one at the bottom contains tomatoes, tomato puree, garlic, basil, salt, vegetable oils that are safe to have. So that product ticks all the ingredients as being safe to have in adult refsums. And that takes me back to my final slide for the presentation, but I just wanted to finish on some of the foods that do come up as questions. Can I have this? Are these safe? And these are ones that we would advise as being acceptable, low in phytanic acid, and okay to have on a food label. I hope that presentation gave you a few points and tips on where to start when looking at an ingredients list on a food label. As I mentioned, they're complicated to navigate, so please do send through any pictures or questions you've got of food labels to your health team, your dietitian, if you have got any questions or unsure, and hopefully they can help advise on the safest way to consume that product. Thank you.